welcome to ISO Buckets. I'm your host, Nate Friesen. Thanks for downloading and listening to the show. If you want to be notified when a new episode drops, make sure you're subscribed to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, feel free to follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at ISO Buckets. This week, I'm going to be talking about the NBA hiatus, players that have COVID-19, some possible solutions to finishing the season when the hiatus ends, certain players donating money to support arena workers and other causes, and even some good old NFL football. With that being said, let's get started about talking the biggest storyline in sports over the last week. So, as sure many of you know, the NBA and all other professional sports league are currently on a hiatus. And I mean, I didn't want to make a podcast last week because it was literally like the day after the NBA and NHL and NFL and all sports got suspended for at least 30 days. And so I just kind of wanted to take a week and just take it all in, I guess. But now that we know it's going to be at least 30 days without the NBA, it's definitely different. I mean, I'm not sure what to do most nights, as I am used to just kind of watching the NBA and other sports on a daily basis. It's definitely different, as I'm sure it is for all of you. But yeah, I mean, we're just kind of rolling with the punches here and just waiting to see if we even do get to play out the remainder of the NBA season, or if this is just going to be it and we'll just start looking ahead to the 2020-2021 season and the draft and free agency, which I personally think is kind of where we're headed right now. I mean, I don't think it's likely that they'll be able to play any games, even without fans, until like at least June or July. And it could be longer, so I mean, if it goes any longer than that, I don't know how they could possibly finish the season before next season would usually start. So I don't know. I mean, I think Adam Silver said that this could have repercussions that could go into and could affect seasons to come. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the NBA deals with this. I guess kind of the reason why, for those of you who don't know, why the NBA and why a majority of these sports leagues decided to take a hiatus kind of started when Jazz center Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID-19. And I mean, it was kind of a shock. It was kind of out of nowhere. I mean, I think the Jazz and Thunder were set to play a game, and all of a sudden, Rudy Gobert wasn't feeling well, and so I guess the teams were kind of worried that he might have it, and they tested him. Turns out he did. So that game got postponed and eventually canceled, and then all NBA games were eventually canceled. And then later that day, or maybe the day after, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert's teammate, also tested positive for the coronavirus. And I mean, Rudy Gobert was kind of silly when he decided to touch all the reporter microphones and stuff, and was kind of goofing around about the coronavirus. Just the day before, it turned out he had it. And I think the fact that Donovan Mitchell got it made, like, he wasn't too happy with Rudy, and I don't think many of the Jazz players were. So yeah, I'm not sure how that will affect the Jazz moving forward if we do play out the remainder of the NBA season, or if how it even affects them going to next season. It could be pretty interesting. I know Donovan Mitchell said that he was pretty heated about it at first. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sure Gobert's really regrets what he did, and honestly, like, I really don't think it's obviously not his fault that Donovan Mitchell or any other NBA players who get coronavirus got it. I mean, it could have been the other way around for all we know. So Yeah, and then I believe the day after that, Christian Wood found out that he had it, um, and I believe the Pistons had just played the Jazz a couple days ago, um, but also so had the Raptors, and no Raptors players tested positive. So I mean, who really knows where it all started? But then, just I think a couple days ago, Kevin Durant and three other unnamed Nets players turns out they have coronavirus, along with Marcus Smart and two unnamed Lakers players, as well as some members of the Nuggets and Sixers organization. No players, but just members of the organization. So yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I'm sure that's not the last people in the NBA who will come out as having the coronavirus. And as long as people still have it, I mean, I don't see how the NBA can get back to any sort of normalcy anytime soon. Um, I guess one sort of positive that's kind of come out of this is guys like Kevin Love, Zion Williamson, Blake Griffin, and Giannis Antetokounmpo have been donating money to support the arena workers. While the NBA is in this hiatus, because obviously the arena workers won't be getting their hourly wage that they normally would from working during games. So, I mean, that's pretty awesome to see players stepping up like that. Also, Rudy Gobert and Steph Curry were donating money to help with the fight of coronavirus, which is good to see. But one thing I just kind of want to mention about the players donating to help the arena workers is that it's great that the players are willing to step up like that. Um, but personally, I feel like the onus should fall mostly on the owners, um, which I think majority of the owners have and will step up. I know I believe the Mavericks, the Sixers, the Warriors, and the Raptors owners all have already put together a program to help support the arena workers during this time. But I certainly don't think all owners have yet, and maybe they will. Hopefully, they will, because I think this should be the responsibility of the owners. I mean, yes, like the players make a lot of money, but it's really nothing compared to what the owners make, and the owners are the employers of these arena workers, not the players. So, um, I mean, I really do hope that all the owners in the NBA will step up and put together a program in place to support the arena workers. And if they don't, I think that there should be, I don't know, either it should be mandated by the league for all teams to just do it, or there should be some sort of repercussions for any team who doesn't step up to support the arena workers at this time, because it's obviously not their fault that these games are being postponed, and it'd be a pretty tough situation when your livelihood relies on these hours and these games. It'd be pretty tough to figure out how to live without that income, obviously. So there are certainly some possible solutions to figuring out how we can finish the NBA season, as well as the playoffs, after this NBA hiatus finally ends. Notably, Spencer Dinwiddie kind of put together a plan on Twitter to try and figure out a way for the NBA to recoup some revenue that they're going to certainly be losing during this time, and B, it'll just help with kind of getting some of the games back that fans and players have lost. So Dinwiddie's plan involves the bottom four teams playing a 3-game series, kind of like a wild card weekend that would cut the field from 30 to 28 teams. It also includes the top 4 teams, which would be currently the Bucks, Raptors, Lakers, and Clippers, getting a first round bye. So the first round would involve teams 5 through 28, and would be played a 5-game series, which cuts the total field down to 16 teams from 28, which includes the 4 teams that received a bye in the first round. So then it would just basically be the regular playoffs. So it would be 16 teams. You just kind of reseed 1 verse 16, 2 verse 15, and so on. And then all the remaining series from there on out would be a best of 7 series, just like the regular playoffs. Um, I think this is a pretty good idea from Spencer. I'm not sure how many additional games this adds. Um, but, I mean, if it means that, like, if there's not going to be any more regular season games and we're just going to have to skip straight to the playoffs, I think this gives at least some teams a little bit of time to get a couple games under their belt before just jumping straight into the playoffs. Um, I guess the Bucks, Raptors, Lakers, and Clippers wouldn't get any sort of warm-up games, which is one sort of problem with this plan. Um, Possibly if there was like a single game, like just a round robin, just to kind of like warm up beforehand, maybe that could also help. I don't know. It's a pretty interesting plan though, considering it gives all 30 teams somewhat of a chance at winning the title, which is cool. But then other sort of solutions to finish out the season I've seen proposed would be skipping straight to the playoffs. So just basically cutting the remaining 20 or so regular season games and just going straight into the playoffs, which obviously, like as I mentioned, it would be somewhat problematic because teams would be coming straight from like 3 or 4 months off, like completely resting and doing nothing, to the most intense basketball of the season, which is just kind of a not exactly ideal and is just a recipe to create injuries. But I mean, if you were able to just have, like I said, kind of like a little round robin where players can kind of get warmed up, get a rhythm, get back into somewhat relative game shape, and then jump straight into the playoffs, I think that kind of makes sense. Possibly, I've heard like a play-in tournament similar to what's been suggested in the past. Possibly having like seeds 10 through 6 have sort of like a play-in tournament for the last 2 seeds in both conferences, and then you just go straight into the the regular playoff format. This would just kind of give teams like the Pelicans and the Blazers and the Kings like a chance to make the playoffs, because they were trying to make a push through these last 20 games, and considering they got cut short, this would just kind of give them somewhat of a second chance to kind of figure it out. But then the last, I guess, solution that I think Mark Cuban suggested was just simply having the season go all the way till August. So basically, whenever the season comes back, whether it's like June or July, you play out the remaining of the regular season games, and then you just start the playoffs in like July, and you just go until like August, maybe even September, October, and just finish out the season as normal. That's interesting. I don't see that happening, just because that would affect next season, obviously, and that would also really affect the draft and free agency, so I don't know how that would work. You'd have to possibly push those events back. I don't know, it's going to be really interesting to see if the NBA is able to finish the season before the draft, which is usually at the end of June. That obviously doesn't seem likely at this point. So I guess like that probably means the draft has to get moved. But then if the draft gets moved, what does that mean for free agency? That'll probably have to be moved too. So yeah, it's all obviously still up in the air at this point. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in the next weeks and months. Last thing I wanted to kind of touch on today has absolutely nothing to do with the NBA. So it's just kind of a different topic I wanted to talk about this week, just due to the lack of NBA games, obviously, is the NFL, which is saving us all from sports withdrawals right now. I mean, the NFL offseason has been incredibly exciting so far. Most notably, Tom Brady, who just Friday morning officially signed with the Buccaneers, which is crazy. I mean, 20 years with the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick, and just uh, leaves for the Buccaneers is insane. Um, I know a lot of people have been kind of comparing this to like Jordan on the Wizards, um, which I guess is fair, but yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be crazy. Like, I personally think Tom Brady is. I don't even really think he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL at this point. So I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see what he can do with the crazy weapons that he's gonna have in Tampa Bay, um, with O.J. Howard at tight end and Mike Evans, and just like the incredible receiving core that he has there. Yeah, but I mean, also considering Brady's going to the Bucks, I mean, I don't know what this means for Jameis Winston. I mean, I personally think like Winston is still young. I mean, I think he has the potential still to be a really good quarterback in this league, and I mean, I just don't really understand why the Buccaneers would prefer Brady over Winston at this point. I mean, I don't think the gap between them right now is huge. I mean, considering like obviously Tom Brady does not turn the ball over as much, but I feel like Jameis could figure that out in the next couple of years. Maybe I'm wrong, um, but I mean Tom Brady's going to be retiring in the next couple of years, so I don't see how this is a good move for the Bucks long term. Maybe 1-2 years they have a shot at winning a Super Bowl, but if they don't, then I think they could really possibly regret just letting Jameis Winston go. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know where Winston's going to go. He could possibly go to the Chargers, could possibly even go to the Pats. I'm not sure if that's what they'd want. He could possibly go to a team like the Bears, which would be interesting. I mean, he's certainly better than Mitch Trubisky, but that's not exactly a high bar. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm a Jameis Winston fan personally, and so I'd like to see him go and get a fresh start with the team and just like prove the Buccaneers wrong and show them that they made a mistake by signing Tom Brady. Um, in addition to Brady and his situation there, Todd Gurley, Los Angeles Rams running back, got cut yesterday, and just this morning signed with the Atlanta Falcons, which is cool, I guess. I mean, the Falcons have kind of been lacking like a really good running back for quite a few years now. But yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure what's going on with Todd Gurley over the last year or so. I mean, just 2 years ago, he was potentially the best running back in the NFL, and all of a sudden, in the Super Bowl, he just didn't look right against the Patriots, and then all of last season, it looked like, I don't know, maybe he's hurt, or the Rams just lost trust in him for some reason. I don't know. Um, I mean, he's still so young. I don't know. He's still a solid running back at the least. So I don't know what the Rams' plan is with cutting Gurley, but I kind of like the pickup for the Falcons, honestly. I mean, if Gurley's able to get back to like the Pro Bowl running back that he was just like not even 2 years ago, I mean, that could make the Falcons a really good team. So yeah, I think that's pretty much a low risk move for the Falcons. So it could work out for them. Um, Additionally, a couple guys got franchise tag, notably Dak Prescott, Derrick Henry, and AJ Green. Um, I mean, cool. Uh, that was kind of expected for all those guys, especially a guy like Dak when the Cowboys just paid Ezekiel Elliott this last offseason. I mean, I think it was pretty obvious that Dak was going to get franchise tagged. Same with Derrick Henry after Ryan Tannehill signed his extension. Um, yeah, AJ Green, I mean, sure, cool. But, I mean, I think more interestingly, Amari Cooper got absolutely paid by by the Cowboys. 5 years, $100 million. I mean, that is just crazy. I mean, Dak, Amari, and Zeke is definitely going to be an offensive threat for years to come. And, I mean, it's going to be cool to watch. I mean, they're three of the league's best young stars. And, I mean, I'm assuming they're going to keep improving for at least the next couple of years. So it'll be cool to see kind of what they can get done now that Jason Garrett is finally not their coach. And, yeah, see what that front office can kind of put around them. I mean, I think they could potentially be a Super Bowl contender this year, depending on kind of the moves that they make around the fringes and stuff like that. Couple more things on the NFL. Drew Brees re-signed for 2 years, $50 million. Kind of took a bit of a pay cut there, I guess, which is good. I mean, give the Saints sort of some room to make some moves. I mean, the Saints have been so close the last couple of years, and they just keep losing in the second round of the playoffs to the Vikings, which, I mean, should not be happening. I mean, they're such a better and more talented team than the Vikings. So, I mean, I think if they make a couple more small moves, I mean, Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas and Drew Brees, and, I mean, their defense is really good. I think that they've got a couple more years here with Brees still playing at a high level to win a Super Bowl again. Cam Newton potentially getting traded, I guess. So, I mean, the Panthers released a statement on social media the other day saying that that they gave Cam Newton, or they're honoring his trade request, I guess. And then Cam Newton kind of fired back saying, I didn't ask for a trade. You guys are trading me. This isn't what I want, basically. But either way, Cam Newton is most likely on the move. I think that probably the most likely destinations would be, I think I've heard a lot, the Chargers and the Bears are kind of the two big ones. I mean, there's obviously other ones like the Patriots. I mean, how crazy would that be if the Patriots lose Tom Brady, quite possibly the greatest quarterback of all time, and a week later just trade for Cam Newton, who is no Tom Brady, but he's still, I mean, if healthy, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think Cam Newton, along with that Patriots defense, which is still going to be one of the best in the league, and I mean, they got Sony Michel, and if they're able to get just even some decent wide receivers on that team, I think they'll be good. And I mean, Cam Newton, if he stays healthy, I mean, he'll add sort of a dynamic to that Patriots offense that they haven't really had, with a running QB. I mean, it could be interesting to see. I mean, the Patriots could very easily, if they were able to swing a trade for Newton, they could very easily be in the playoffs again next year. And depending on what magic Belichick is able to do with this team, I mean, they could possibly be in Super Bowl contention again very soon. Last thing on the NFL, probably the craziest thing to happen over the last couple of days was the trade for DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, what are the Texans doing? I don't understand. Trading DeAndre Hopkins, who is quite possibly the best wide receiver in the NFL. If not, he's at least a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. For David Johnson, a washed-up running back who's been injury plague over the last few years. I mean, all they really got was David Johnson and a first-round pick. What? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, considering especially just hours after that trade, the Buffalo Bills traded 4 picks for Stephon Diggs. I mean, how can I mean Diggs is like maybe a top 10 wide receiver in the league. I like probably not. He's like a fringe top 10 wide receiver in the league, and the Bills, or I mean the Vikings got 4 picks in return, and the Texans were only able to get 1 for a guy who's quite possibly the best wide receiver in the league. I mean, that obviously just makes no sense. Not entirely sure what the Texans are trying to do. I mean, you've got one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL in Deshaun Watson, and I know you've still got really good wide receivers with Kenny Stills and Will Fuller, but I mean, Hopkins is just like a special talent, and I mean, it just makes no sense, especially for a guy like David Johnson, unless they think like he's still a top running back in the league, which I don't think they have any reason to believe that. I mean, this trade makes like absolutely no sense. So, I mean, I feel bad for Watson. I mean, first of all, he can't get an offensive line that can block anyone at all, and now they trade his best wide receiver option. Yeah, it sucks. If they can't figure out in Houston soon, I mean, Watson's gonna leave and or demand a trade or something very soon. I just don't see why he would want to stick around with a team that just simply can't put the right pieces around him and trades their best players for nothing, basically. So, yeah, I think that's all I've got in terms of the NBA and the NFL for this week. I think from here on out, I'll probably continue to talk a decent amount about the NFL, just considering the NBA, there's really nothing going on, and the NFL offseason is going to keep being exciting, especially with the draft coming up in the end of April. So yeah, I think that's all for today. If you're interested in hearing some more of my thoughts about the NBA, you can head over to Fansided and check out one of my most recent articles where I created the All Out of Nowhere team. I also talked about some player physiques that were seen as flaws but turned out to be assets. I'll also be putting out a lot of Raptors and Hawks content in the near future, so keep an eye out for that. Once again, thanks for tuning into ISO Buckets. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, all that fun stuff. I'd really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you next week.